Solace, 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 solace.
Good evening, lovely spirits. It's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace. All praises to the horizon as always. Peace, wealth, and wisdom. Now this evening I want to do this video discussing the importance of breast milk or breastfeeding. Let's say breast milk, because I guess if you pump your breasts, it's still breast milk. And so I want to discuss the importance of breast milk. Now, many people are not aware that breast milk has traces of gold in it. These traces of gold within this breast milk is very important in the baby's central brain development. This is why babies, all the way up till early childhood, their skin as well as their hair has a high resonance of gold. It's coming from the breast milk because all babies drink is breast milk. Therefore, the gold within it, their gold levels are higher than ours. Meaning, when we go to the doctor, they check our iron levels, but they do not check the levels of the other metals, which they should. Now, when you're dealing with the baby, so their gold levels are higher. Gold is medicinal. It is a positive metal. Of course, you have positive and negative metals. Of course, you have your spine and your central brain. This is the whole of your brain, meaning the spine as well. And so each part of the spine resonates its metal. The lower parts of the spine resonating the negative metals like silver, leads. The higher parts of the spine resonating the positive metals, your coppers, your golds. Now, as I said, that central brain, this is where your golds are resonating. Meaning when you get positive, good, energetic, loving thought, it vibrates the central brain area, resonating the golds out into the body. Same with the cervical spine. This is your coppers, C1 through C7 vertebrae. They are your coppers. When you get specific kinds of thoughts falling in line with positive, loving, energetic, so it vibrates the cervical part of the brain, which is the spine, resonating the coppers out into the body. Of course, the coppers, the metals, these are medicinal. Now, each thought, of course, can produce a substance. No different than when we get sexual, lustly thoughts. Produces semen, which is coming from the brain, dropping down the spine. And so, like I said, each individual thought can produce a substance, as well as a metal. And so, of course, you have the 5 parts of the spine. The sacrum, S1 through S5 vertebrae. They're fused together, but this part of the spine, our brain, this is where your silver metals are kind of resonating off at. And so if you have certain kinds of negative thoughts, they will vibrate that area of the spine, resonating those metals out into the body, causing imbalances in the metals. Like I said, the doctors do not check the levels of our other metals. Now, of course, on top of the sacrum, you have the lumbar spine. This is your stomach area. Those 5 vertebrae, L1 through L5, they're resonating your leads. Of course, this is toxic to the body. And so if you have lower spine thought, negative thought, this vibrates that area of the spine, the lumbar part, resonating the leads out into the body. You can resonate too much leads out into the body. This turns into kidney stones, all types of things. Depression, suicidal thoughts if it's too much. You get it? And so our thoughts are important for those reasons. Like I said, thought will turn into substance. So substance being like ejaculation is substance. And so substance is resonated out through the body as well with these metal elements. And so the metals is settling into the body as well as the substance. And so on top of the lumbar spine, you have the thoracic spine, your T1 through T12 vertebrae. This is your tens. And so if you get thought from that in between parts of the spine or brain, so it vibrates that part. You get the tens resonating out through the body, as well as the substance associated with that level of emotion, which is conscious. Conscious and emotion, they go hand in hand. Conscious will become emotion, just like air will become water. And so the different states of waters in our body represent the different states of emotion, which is coming from conscious, which is the same consistency as air, meaning thought. Same consistency as air, but it can produce substance. No different than air produces substance. Air being the many different gases we have. O2, which is oxygen. O2, CO2, that being like clean air and dirty air. Different states of gases are conscious, manifesting into different states of waters. And so the body, our inner world, is no different. And so, of course, when you get to the cervical spine, this is on top of the thoracic. You have your C1 through C7 vertebrae. This is your coppers. And so when you get positive thought more higher up on the spine, this vibrates that part of the spine, resonating out the coppers. This is, medicinal for the body. Same thing with the central brain. This is where your golds is producing, kind of resonating out into the body. Now, this is important in a baby's development, meaning the traces of gold in that breast milk is important in that central brain development for that baby. This is where your golds is resonating. You want the baby to be on a positive, energetic start. And so this is what the breast milk is doing. It's not just sustaining the baby, but it's developing the central brain, or the positive parts of that spine, if that makes sense to you. Look at the spine as levels of conscious. Positives descending to negatives. Same as metals, meaning the gold, the coppers, these are your positive metals. If you're familiar with electrical work, those are your positive metals. You have your negatives, your silvers, your leads. You get it? And so look at it as a descending pole, or levels of conscious. And so you want gold vibrating out into the body more than the other metals, of course. You get it? Because this is associated with good, positive, loving thought. This is why you have traces of gold in semen as well, because it's coming from that energetic, loving, excited thought. Thought producing substance. And so that substance is going to have gold in it because it's coming from that area where the gold is produced and resonated out into the body. This is why good positive thought is important, because even though you don't know, you're building up substance. You're vibrating or as adding or raising your gold levels within. And so when the baby's feeding on breast milk, the gold levels of the body is raising. This is why they have a high resonance of gold coming off the skin and hair. Because as they're feeding on that breast milk, they're raising their gold levels, kind of keeping them positive and energetic. Now, of course, babies don't have negative thought. You get it? they have high levels of gold resonating off the body. This is associated with positive, happy, exciting thought. Now I want you guys to grasp, Similac, do you think Similac has traces of gold in it, like breast milk? Excuse my language, but hell no. It does not. I'm sure of it. It probably has traces of lead in it. And so the same way the traces of gold in the breast milk helps develop the central brain, so those traces of lead in Similac will double the resonance of the lead within the baby, causing the baby to be more stagnant, slow-paced, more whiny, as opposed to a baby drinking breast milk, may be more upbeat, more energetic, more laughy, more excited. This is the difference between breast milk and Similac. Now, of course, it's deeper than that. I mean, if you're breastfeeding a baby but then ignoring the baby for the rest of the year, so it may not be a high resonance of gold off the baby because the baby's still being neglected. But you get it, most people, if they breastfeed, and so they're giving attention and love to the baby, and so their levels of gold is raising. Now, let's say a baby being fed Similac and then thrown to the side. That baby is vibrating on negative emotion, neglect. It ain't really that developed on thought, but the emotional state is neglect. And so the baby more whiny and crying and stagnant, it's because of the Similac. The Similac can affect it that way, no different than neglecting the baby. You get it? The same way you love a baby and give a baby a lot of nurturing, so the breast milk is doing the same thing, raising the levels of gold, just like neglect is raising the levels of lead in the baby. You get it? And so we have many different states of metals in us. Like I said, the doctors do not check the levels of the other metals, only the iron. And so in that, most people do not understand this science that I explain, being as though I'm the one that kind of am the inventor of it. You know, the sperm is the spirit sciences and the explaining of, you know, the levels of conscious being in the spine. And so being as though this science is kind of new to the world, many people are not aware of this. But as I explain it, most people grasp and say, no, that's a real science he's explaining. It's just, like he said, it's new. No one's ever presented this science. So the scientists that come before me, so they brought us to where we are. And so I guess I shall bring us wherever we go. And so I want to explain to you guys, because I believe I have an alternative to Similac. I believe I can make breast milk using bees. Now, I know that sounds weird. I'm going to go in depth explaining this. But before I do, I want to make sure you guys, especially women, men as well, because we parents too. And so when you're having a newborn baby, it's very important that the baby gets breast milk. There's traces of gold in there. There's things that you do not understand behind the scenes in there. That baby needs that. Similac, it has traces of other things in there that you don't know what it is, working behind the scenes, doing things you wouldn't foresee. But just kind of grasp, you know, what I'm explaining to you guys as far as the baby's central brain developing and the levels of conscious. Kind of give your baby a fresh start at being positive, having good, you know, clear conscious, etc. Of course, you want to match that with the nurturing. Meaning my son, he was fed Similac. But me and his mother gave him so much attention and love. We were both always hugging up on him. I was always playing with him, taking him to the park since like 6 months, and he was always getting a lot of attention and being tickled and always in a laughing state and digging in the toilet and jumping in the garbage. And it was just me and her. You know, we were down south, and so he was just getting that complete attention for the first year of his life. He was walking early, like at 5 months, he was walking, running around, messing up, which is kind of like weird. See, he walked at 5 months, he was. But he was the only thing that we had attention to give to. You get it? In New York, a lot is going on. You move down south, it's slow. And so we was just like full blast on him. And he was getting all the love and the nurturing he needed, and he was very upbeat. Like I said, he used to run around the house at 5 months and very attentive, and you can kind of see, okay. That's why I said it's deeper than just the milk. I don't want you to think you can just give your child breast milk and throw them to the side. But the breast milk is doing the same things as the nurturing of a child, just like the Similac is doing the same things as neglecting the child. It's kind of raising the lower emotions, you know, the lower spine, resonating or raising the levels of the lower spine metals. And so kind of grasp, the breast milk is very important. I also want to say breast milk can be medicinal to adults, because I'm about to go into how I figured out how bees can make breast milk. But before I go into that, I want to say this. Breast milk won't sustain an adult, meaning if an adult drinks breast milk, they're not going to be full, or they're not going to sustain themselves off breast milk. But breast milk can still be used medicinally. And so it's a lot of little remedies like this. This is why I believe my science is very important, because it can bring a lot to the table. Hopefully a scientist sees this and maybe we can team up, because I'm not from any university or anything. I'm an independent scientist, meaning I'm self-taught. I study the science books from the universities I've just never attended. And so I self-taught. I know science the same way they do. I just taught myself, which every adult can do. Meaning y'all can buy these books and teach yourselves, but y'all kind of go to college because you say, I don't really want to. I want to kind of. You get it? Mm-hmm. It's hard to explain, but some people do go to college and then they develop up, meaning they continue to teach themselves after what was taught to them. And so you can kind of look at me as that. I kind of like a George Washington Carver. The way he learned from the life in flowers, I kind of learned from the life in bees. And my science is weird, but it's accurate. And so I want to explain to you guys how I believe bees, if they're manipulated or taught, they could make breast milk the same way they make honey. They wouldn't know what they're doing, but we would get breast milk instead of honey from the combs. It's a genius plan. I'm going to explain it. But before I do, I want to say breast milk can be medicinal for adults. Meaning, being as though the doctors do not check our other metals or the levels of the other metals within our bodies, like the coppers, the golds, the tins, the leads. They only check the iron, if your blood iron is high or low. But they don't check your gold levels, your silver levels. You get it? And so if they did, let's say your gold levels was low. And so of course, you're on a path to being open to get sick. Meaning if your gold levels are low, you can become sick. If your gold levels are high like a baby, it will be a little difficult for you to become sick. Your levels must be lowered. You get it? Meaning a healthy baby, you're going to have a hard time getting them sick. You get it? Where they're like fixed sick. Whatever little sniffles and giggles or cold they get, it's going to go away. They drinking breast milk all day. It's going to be hard to really get them sick. I seen a movie where a woman was stuck in the cold and she had the little baby with her and she was all messed up. They had to amputate her feet. But the baby was good. He had hella baby fat. Somehow the baby survived. He didn't have a scratch. He was just a little dehydrated, kind of how I am now. My mouth is so dry. It's so humid in New York. But all the baby suffered was dehydration, meaning the baby didn't get sick or cold, nothing. And so you have to grasp, she was giving the baby breast milk in the movie, meaning she already had it stored up, whatever trip they was going on. And the baby was fine. And so I want you guys to grasp, breast milk, it's medicinal, meaning an adult can still take it and manipulate their gold medals. I do not want you guys to run around drinking baby's breast milk. Fully understand the science before you do things like this, but I'm just giving you an understanding. Meaning breast milk isn't going to harm you in any way, but it's no point on drinking these things and then you get it? Everything has to be aligned when you're dealing with organic healing. That's what I like to call these things, organic healing. Mental and organic manipulation healing. And so we can manipulate a lot of the organic things here in life to do what scientists do in laboratories. And so I want you guys to grasp, when you're dealing with bees, bees make honey by taking, what do they call that? The nectar from flowers or plants. Now the nectar is like the juice. They take the juice or the nectar from the flower of the plant, store it in the honey pouch. Meaning a honeybee has two stomachs. One they eat and store their food with, and then their honey pouch. This is where they take the nectar from the flower, store it. This queen bee then gives it to the worker bees, meaning she gives this nectar after she stores it and turns it over into honey or close to honey. She then in turn gives it from her honey pouch to the other bees. They make honeycombs out of it. And so this is what we get. That's why the honeycombs always got bees on them. So the worker bees kind of make the honeycombs using the honey that the queen bee gives them from the nectar. Now, many people don't realize, but breast milk is made the same way. The alveoli cells within a woman's breast is no different than the bees. And the nectar is the semen. This is why I have earlier videos where I explain how semen is what becomes the breast milk within the woman. This is why they don't have breast milk until they have semen or get pregnant. You get it? And so semen is what's turned over into breast milk. This is why it looks like breast milk. It's a very deep thing I want you guys to grasp. Now, of course, semen has gold in it because it's what's being turned over into breast milk. Of course, semen comes from positive, loving thought. Lusty, loving thoughts, and so you ejaculate. And so positive thought vibrates that central brain, and so like I said, the gold is resonating from that area when you have positive thought, and so it's going to be in the substance it produces. And so that substance, which is semen, is being turned over into breast milk, meaning the alveoli cells within a woman's body takes that semen, which is like the nectar, and they turn it over into what we know as breast milk. Alveoli cells. They turn breast milk, or they are what makes breast milk in a woman's breast. I'm explaining to you how. No different than the bee does it. The queen bee takes the nectar from the flower. The woman, being like the queen bee, takes the nectar from the man, which is the semen. It's stored within her honey pouch, meaning you can say her honey pouch is her breast. It's not her stomach where her food goes, but it's where her other food goes, the milk that she's going to feed to her little worker bee, which is her kid. Now I want you guys to grasp. The queen bee takes the nectar from the flower, stores it in her honey pouch. The woman takes the semen from the man. It is then turned over by the alveoli cells, just like the queen bee passes Just like the queen bee passes the nectar that she stored over to the worker bees and they turned it into the honeycombs, the alveoli cells then take the semen from the woman and turn it over into the honeycombs of the breast. Many people don't realize this, but the alveoli cells make like a honeycomb symmetry, you could say, within the breast, meaning they all kind of stack together and line up, looking just like a honeycomb within the breast. And you can say there's a thin line from each honeycomb hole going directly to the nipple. This is how the baby gets the milk. But the alveoli cells, they shape and form those honeycombs that's full of milk within the breast. They shape and form that, no different than the bees shape and form the honeycombs that we see here. And so what's happening on the inner world is no different than the outer. Meaning the same thing the bees are doing, so the bees within the woman are doing. You can kind of say the alveoli cells. I guess this is why they call it the birds and the bees when women are having sex. This is why they call it the land of milk and honey, because milk and honey is no different. They both contain traces of gold. You get it? And so it's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp. You have men that domesticate bees, to make them produce honey faster so they can sell it. I was wondering if these bees were giving semen, male semen, instead of the nectar from a flower, could it be turned over into honeycombs of breast milk? Because the semen in a man and the nectar in a flower is truly not that different. And so I wonder, would the bee truly know the difference? Or could the bee be manipulated to not know the difference? As I said, they're truly no different if you remove the sperm cell from the semen. So the queen bee could take in the semen, store it in her honey pouch, let it turn over into honey or a form of breast milk, give it to the worker bees. They make the honeycombs as they naturally would, but these honeycombs would be breast milk combs, meaning you have organic breast milk made by bees. And a woman can give that breast milk to the child, which may be even healthier than her own breast milk. It may have higher levels of gold in that, because I know honey. But that can be given to children instead of Similac. And so you have a healthier alternative. Meaning I'm sure women would prefer to give their child that instead of Similac, which is just powder. That's like Kool-Aid to fresh squeezed fruit. It's a complete difference. Kool-Aid is dye, poison. It's hair dye. Similac is just powder. It's a made-up thing. It's not milk. It's a supplement or a replacement. I apologize. I have to get something to drink. My mouth is so dry. I apologize. It's very humid in New York. I got this light here, about to die, but it's very deep. If any of you guys, may know a scientist or know any scientist that you can have me may sit down with and discuss it more in depth, so that because he could probably understand better than the average person. The average person, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. You say, yeah, that might work. But the scientist would grasp more. Meaning, this is real. This is not just an idea. This can be done. I just don't have the laboratory to do it. And so this is why I said, if you can plug me in with maybe someone from a university, we can do this together. You know, bring it to the forefront, be billionaires, you know, the replacers of Similac. You know, it's a hell of an invention. I have so many more deep inventions just like that one. But like I said, my science is deep. The sperm is the spirit science. It's very deep. The breaking down of the spine, how it's the brain. So it's a lot to it. But once you learn it, it's so much you can do with it. And so that's just one of my inventions. Having bees turn semen over into breast milk, meaning use the semen instead of the nectar from the flower, but use the semen. The same way they turn the nectar in the flower over into honey, see if the bee can turn the semen over into, you know, honeycombs of breast milk. And so it's a very deep thing I want you guys to grasp. I believe it can work. I think I just said something wrong. But if I did, I apologize. Hopefully you guys know what I meant. But the same way the bees take the nectar from the flower and turn it over into honey, the nectar in the flower and the nectar in the man, which is the semen, is truly no different. It may be little differences, but it's truly no different. And so semen is what is turned over into breast milk within a woman. Meaning the alveoli cells are no different than worker bees. They turn that semen over into breast milk. The same way the worker bees turn that nectar from the flower over into honeycombs. And so the woman has honeycombs within the breast. You can look all this up in science. As I said, I'm self-taught, but it's still the same good science. Just a little more in depth. So certain things I'll say may sound weird, but if you understand my science, then you understand what I'm saying. I know many people never heard that before. Say semen is breast milk. That's crazy. Science hasn't gotten there yet. Like I said, I'm self-taught, so there's no limits for anyone. But just because I'm self-taught, that doesn't mean I'm less. Doesn't mean I'm less than a scientist that went to school. Most of the great scientists we have, they didn't go to school. They kind of are the reason why you have certain topics in school. You get it? And some of the great scientists we have, they went to school. Meaning life is not a battle. You either did or you didn't, but so your wisdom is your wisdom. If it's good, it's good. Period. And so, like I said, I would love to team up with someone from a university. And we kind of do it together. I'm sure they have access to a laboratory. Somebody that kind of domesticates bees. Maybe we can bring them into the mix. And kind of have a little fun. See what we can do. Because I know this can work. Like I said, I just don't have a laboratory to do many things that, you know. Many inventions I have, great ones too, but like I said, if you know anyone that can assist me in bringing this to the forefront, at least bringing the idea to one of the universities, that'd be great if you could plug me in.